That's the tourist trade. That just mushrooms out. They have to eat. They got to sleep somewhere.
Do you have any thoughts, John, on the problem we have with sometimes collecting real estate taxes in Altoona? And I'm talking both people that simply don't pay the property taxes. In the Act 47, they talked about 10% of the properties actually don't pay property taxes, and I assume these properties are blighted, and the people buy them and just allow them to go on tax sales and try to rent them out in the meantime or do whatever in the meantime.
Yeah.
I mean, have you talked to people about that issue?
That issue basically is how aggressive can we get to go after these deadbeats. Because the blight's on all of us. I mean, we all have to drive past it. If you have one in your neighborhood, you have to look at it. I had one next door to my business. I went over and paid $6,000 just to tear it down. You just have to be more aggressive with what can we do to put teeth into.
Now, we understand that you are doing what many successful politicians do, particularly in local elections. You're knocking on doors. Now, I'm sure you hear a lot of things, but are there any common thoughts that people are expressing to you that are not so specific that they're going to say, let's get Joe Smith and let's get Pete? I mean, what are some of the general things you've heard that the citizens are saying to you they'd like to see you do to make Altoona better?
Well, basically, what I'm hearing is most of the citizens believe City Hall is unresponsive to them. Personally, I think more people should get involved and come down to the council meetings. I think
how many were there the other night when you were there?
Well, there were groups that came in and went. It was probably 20, 25 all told, but they rotated in and out as their issue came and went. They didn't stay for the rest. But we just have to be more responsive to what the city wants. And mostly, the city is turning into an elderly population. This is, I'm not looking at you. I've gone down. I'm putting in a suggestion box at the senior center. In fact, I'm having lunch down there today, and find out what the older people want. And there's such a tool that we can use. They seem to get overlooked because our parents, my generation's parents, they were known as America's greatest generation. They didn't just preserve a city. They preserved an entire world. And I think we should get more of their input on what we should be doing. That's what I think. I go down there to learn. I don't go down to tell them what I'm going to do. I want to learn.
Yeah.
It's experience.
and getting the feedback from the folks who live here and pay taxes and all. Now, my understanding is, and I've never been told differently, that there is no permanent office in City Hall for the mayor.
That's true.
Now, isn't that a crime in the city the size of Altoona? They don't have a permanent office in the City Hall. Now, as the mayor, when you're elected, will you prevail upon the folks to say, look, I can serve Altoona citizens better from City Hall than the basement of my home?
Well, I said I might just get a little school desk and set it up in the lobby of City Hall. See a Ben Manning will come down and ask me why.
You need to be accessible, and that's detrimental to the city.
Yeah.
Now, one other thing that kind of sticks in my craw about this whole process of government. We have a 79th District representative now by the name of McGinnis, who never was a Democrat, never was a Republican, lifelong libertarian, who is unalterably opposed to any governmental spending on services, including police, fire, roads, research and development. In fact, he voted against funding from the state to run the train from Pittsburgh through Altoona to Harrisburg. Now, I know I don't want you to get into a situation where you'd be at odds, but how do you think that's going to impact your job as mayor when this guy has said repeatedly, I will support no bill that is going to send funds to the ABCD Corp or to the Redevelopment Authority in Altoona? Does that seem to you something that you think is insurmountable, or maybe you can work with John?
Well, I guess we can try to talk with him to see what we can do. What can you do? If he's going to be that unresponsive to his citizens, he's probably going to be one term, would be my guess. But, I would rather try to work with the man, see what can be done. I think a lot of this, I think we're going to have to depend on our own bootstraps here. I think it's gotten to that point. And for instance, here's a silly idea. Every June, there's a motorcycle rally in Johnstown. Now, there's 3 days. People roll in from, they get 70 to 100,000 people roll into Johnstown. As of last year, they've moved all the way to Evansburg. That rally goes from Johnstown to Evansburg. Now, where you make your money off of these rallies, obviously the food, the hotels, they'll make money. But you make your money off the vendors. Now, typically, a vendor will pay $1,000 in a permit fee to the city to set up, to sell his hot dogs or leather goods or whatever. Why can't we expand that to Altoona, open this up, hire a band, put them down there at the Railroad Museum? If we got just, say, 250 vendors at $1,000 a pop, there's $250,000. All we have to do is bend down and pick it up off the sidewalk every June.
Yeah.
And what if we were to earmark that straight into the pension funds at first, till we fund them to 110%? Now, we could do that. The firefighters are down to, what is it, George, 64% now?
Right.
We could refund that easy, and we're not taking any money from the citizens. No. Instead, we're giving money to the citizens.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good way to use that.
You bring up a good
funds.
point, George, and then I'll come back to you. You bring up a good point about funding for the pension funds. Now, the biggest problem in the pension funds right now is that municipalities and school districts and the state have been derelict in putting their fair share every year into the funds.
They've all been.
And we use the county commissioners as one example, George. We talked about that many times. In fact, they admitted publicly that they have been guilty over the last 12 years of underfunding the pension plan. Now, I don't know whether City Hall here in Altoona is just as guilty, but what happens is, like at the county, they, instead of putting money into the pension fund, they put it off and put it off. In fact, for this year's budget coming up, they're putting the same amount in as they did last year and the year before.
The county is.
So the county is. So, when you talk about
ridiculous.
pensions, maybe a review of how much it's going to take over a certain period of time to make them 110% viable. But the point is, as you said earlier, that the working class people who belong to the unions and have pensions, they're the ones who are being punished for, and I don't know, we'd have to look at the city of Altoona to see if they...
Well, that information is available. Actually, with municipalities, the state mandates contributions. Now, the problem all of the pensions, including Altoona's pensions, have gotten into is simply the decrease of the stock market. And everyone's been hit with this problem where they've ended up underfunding the pension plans because there were actuarial estimates of how much your pension would increase that proved to be wrong. When you have a negative stock market
year.
And you're assuming an 8% increase every year, you have major problems.
Sure.
Now, some of this will self-correct because the stock market has been coming back up, and I'm just waiting to see in future estimates how much the shortages are. But the state mandates certain contributions. The city is not...
I know they mandate, but that doesn't mean that just like the county, they were mandated to pay in over the last 12 years, and they didn't.
Yeah, no.
So the point is, when you deliberately underfund, as the county commissioners have done, then you are deliberately snubbing your nose at the responsibility, and therefore the people are suffering now. Like, that's one of the main reasons they're selling Valley View, because of the pension plan.
Well, actually, in this Act 47, one of the recommendations is to eliminate the defined benefit pension and to go with
into
the
a 401k, which is the stock
defined.
market or an investment in that.
And so some of this is going to either happen or not it's sort of, I think, mandatory to decide these things in that Act 47, the report, as I understand it. All the unions' contracts expire at the end of this year, 2013. And I think the report is saying decisions on what to do or need to be made before the contracts expire. Now, I don't know
These
why
are
they say that.
negotiations, and they're
And
currently
this is
going
all
into
going to
them
happen before you
I
ever
know.
walk through the door.
But if they get a one-year contract, I'll be there next year.
Yeah.
Well, we are running out of time, and if there's a burning question from either George or Robin, we'll ask it. But if not, we'll give you the last 2 minutes to tell the citizens of Altoona who are watching why John Pentland should be the mayor.
Well, I'm looking out for the guy that has to go to work every day. This is my thing. I know we need big business, and I want to work towards doing that. But small business, I want to go hand in hand with the small business. I want them to be able to come into my office when I get one and say, hey, Mayor, this is what we need. We have a parking lot issue. Okay, well, let's go out there and look at it. Not just refer you, hey, this is the rules, hit the road. You get some of that attitude now, but that's what I want to do. I want to be there for the people of the city. As you all may know or may not know, this job pays like $80 a week. I'm not in it for the money.
Absolutely.
I can hear that loud and clear.
Yes, sir.
And
Well,
a good
John,
Democrat.
we certainly appreciate you coming on today, and I hope the folks watching are as enthused as we are, having heard you a couple different times. I think you bring a very fresh, honest, vigorous approach to the office, and we wish you, we're not only going to wish you luck, we're going to get the voters out. Because we're going to elect John Pentland,
Absolutely.
mayor of the city of Altoona, and thanks for coming in, and we'll hopefully have you back here on the 16th of May. Okay, and
Glad
we're going
to
to
be
take
here.
we're going to take a break now while
You
John
can go ahead.
gets ready to depart the premises. Thank you very much for coming.